Music always puts me in mind of 50s documentaries.
Yeah, me too.
100%.
Wow,
Here-
the chat. Go ahead.
Here we have the Mutants and Masterminds game designer.
Working hard.
Don't tap on the glass, though. That frightens him.
So,
So, little Timmy, we hear you want to make some Mutants and
Mutants
Masterminds.
Masterminds characters.
that's brilliant.
Have you considered that maybe that's communist propaganda?
So the chat has been just hard at work,
Right?
chatting amongst themselves. David's talking. RC's in there chatting. Rebel Moose. Rebel Moose. I'm glad that you're here because you remind me that today's topic is brought to you by Rebel Moose.
Right?
Yeah, you during our planning meeting, one of which we have coming up here just a matter of days. But for now, we say unto you, thank you, and I'll give you your hero point here momentarily. But hey, Ken, good to see you. Gab's here as well. Simon, I see you. Robert Williams is here as well. Good deal. Howdy, y'all. RC says, oh, I'm definitely going to clip the communist propaganda line. Happy MuMaMo, Sean Vieira. Good to see you. Warden Maximus says, hey, people. Ronma Pat's here as well. Good to see you. You know who else is really great to see? Two of the most handsome heroes I know. They are, wait. Where did my, I'm trying to find my overlay. And it's, I know why. You know why? Because there is no overlay. All I have to do is hide this.
I thought you were setting us up for a Word of the Handsome Fellas joke.
No, that's funny. No.
I thought he was getting ready to roast us, Steve.
Two of the most handsome gentlemen in the TTRPG business. You've got some Alex Thomas and some Steve Kenson. Of course, I am your disembodied host. Not quite handsome enough to make the big screen, but here nonetheless. And today's, I'm really excited about this. The overlay is over that way, says RC. Today's, again, I want to say, as I said, in the run up to the show, this was an idea that was submitted during our planning session that we had. How long ago was it? Was it like 3 months?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, yeah. So, 3 months ago, Rebel Moose said, hey, why don't we talk about M&M as a game engine? And you, friend, you get this. We need like a sound effect for that. Right. There you go. Your hero point, my friend. It gives you all kinds of powers, all kinds of good stuff. Don't use it all in one place. Or no, I guess you kind of have to. Take bites of it and digest it throughout the day. I wouldn't do that either. Rebel Moon says, I shall cherish this hero point for all my days, or at least until I need to add a something to a scene. Yeah, absolutely. Wasn't there a book for using M&M for SNS?
There is.
There was indeed.
What's SNS?
Sword and Sorcery.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. So folks should be no stranger to the notion. A lot of people that I've talked to are like, hey, can I, or is it okay if I? And the answer is yes, right? I mean, you can use M&M as a, and so what are the technical considerations that a GM would have to make to get their, homebrew, whatever it is, and really whatever it is to work with Mutants Mastermind?
Technically, to clarify, Mutants and Masterminds is already a game engine that does in fact power superhero games, but we're talking about using Mutants and Masterminds as a game engine for things other than superhero games.
That's right.
So
that's right. Yeah. So it already is a game engine. It's powering. Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's powering itself.
It's powering itself.
Self-sustaining. It's
clean. Yeah. I think that step one of that process, when you decide to use Mutants and Masterminds as a game engine for something else, is to start narrowing your focus. Because as it's designed, Mutants and Masterminds is basically intended to do a really wide variety of things for a huge, tremendous variety of characters, just because of the nature of superhero stories. If you're going to use it as a game engine for something that is more like, say, Sword and Sorcery, you need to start narrowing that list of possibilities and character types down, to focus it more on that particular genre.
Yeah, it's a load of world building and back end work for you as a GM, but I do think that M&M is flexible enough to run just about anything. As long as you're looking for characters who are more powerful than general PCs and other role-playing games, who have sort of a dynamic ability to create whatever character that they want to be within that scope, and if you want to use hero points, which are the best mechanic in the gaming industry as a whole.
David asks an interesting question, and I think that we're definitely talking about two distinctly different sort of spaces associated with Mutants Masterminds. But David was asking, if there's time at the end to talk about dovetailing with the superpowered license?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Do that.
Awesome. Oh, you know what I forgot, you guys?
What's that?
We have got a ton of products that just launched today.
Bunch of new releases thanks to Gen Con and such.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we jump over to that real fast, and then we'll pop back into this engine discussion moving forward. But first, we have the Astonishing Adventures Night of the Living Robots. It's live today.
Yay.
Right now.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too.
At the very least, an amazing simulation of life.
That's right. Exactly. So you can get the PDF. You can head on over to the link I dropped in chat. And David said, I had these weird little novels show up. You did. Could they be part of the, did you get the Arcane Duology? We've got the Doom that came to San Francisco and then lost and never found. Pop that one in here too. I was going to use the QR codes, but they made me angry. There we go. We have Lost and Never Found. That is softback and PDF, e-readers and the like. And then the Doom that came to San Francisco. I love this cover art.
Right.
I like it a lot. Yeah. No, it's so funny. Reverend Moose says a glimpse into Disembodied Troy's life via browser plugins. Get your head out of my plugins. Fortunately, they're all, work related. And then, of course, just so you know, the Powered Up, an Earth Prime anthology is released today as well. So, honestly, if you just want to head on over to check out just Night of the Living. Yeah, this is Night of the Living Robots is super fun. I remember now, this was written by Jason Keeley, but you ran the game, didn't you, Steve?
I did. For folks who don't mind some mild spoilers, check out the live stream on our YouTube channel for me running this adventure before it was published.
It was super fun. Yeah. Hey,
and
Squire, good to see you.
Here's a fun thing. Here's another fun thing about Night of the Living Robots. This was the first cover I was allowed to commission as line developer for Mutants Masterminds.
No kidding.
And it's telling that I have Thunderbolt getting beat up on the front.
Poor Thunderbolt.
I like it. Okay, so go head on over to the store, pick up these fine products in either PDF or real life book format. Or you can head over to DriveThruRPG, and we'll provide those links, and we'll share them all through social media and all that good stuff after the program. So there you go. Now, nice. Someone mentions, let's see, it was Simon said, and I can see how to use M&M to make a GTA Online style heists, especially making them like this series of funding and doomsday heists. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it's great for that kind of stuff. I use Mutants and Masterminds outside of the superhero genre to do Star Wars. I've done the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies. I've done Fallout. I've done other pulp adventure. Just a lot of stuff anything where it's really cinematic and you want to give your players a lot of freedom to join in with the group storytelling, but still have a little bit of crunch the rule system to make the unique characters that they want to make.
Yeah, I agree.
It just comes down to moving power level around and moving expectations around a little bit and keying in your mind a little bit what genre tropes apply for hero points and things like that.
So as you as you have been experimenting and sort of porting, sort of your ideas into the, the M&M engine, and is that what we call it, the M&M engine, Mutants Masterminds engine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's just Mutants Masterminds as an engine.
Awesome. Yeah. So what would you say are some of the things that if someone wants to do that, they should look out for? And is it worth it to do that for a one-off, or, what are the circumstances that say, hey, try it out?
Well, it depends in terms of one-offs, it depends on how much work you want to put into it. For one-offs, I think that you're best off either working out pre-generated characters so that you don't have to provide players with a complete set of character design rules. Or you can do a certain amount of back and forth with the players and adjust your setting to what it is they want to play. So, like, if you're doing a sword and sorcery one-off, and one of the players is like, I want to play a lizard man. Okay, you've just decided there are lizard people in your setting, because the player wants one, or whatever. If a player decides they want to play a necromancer, okay, well, obviously there are necromancers in this setting. Is that the only form of magic? Who knows?
Or one really delusional guy with a lightning bolt.
Right. Either way. So you can do a certain amount of the setting design based on what it is the players want to do, and then kind of narrow things down from that, rather than handing them a set of narrower options, like we would need to do if we were basically producing a setting for publication, because we don't know who the player characters are.
Gotcha. A lot of talk about heists that would work really well, but someone mentioned, I believe it was Squire, asked about horror, and I want to feel like, is it empowered up? I'm trying to think of there is a reference to sort of Cthulhu, and incorporating that kind of stuff into Mutants and Masterminds.
You can do action horror more than like survivor horror or psychological horror for M&M, I would say. It's more possible.
Jefferson, the Supernatural Handbook has all sorts of guidelines for doing all kinds of horror, from survival horror through sort of more monster stomping action adventure stuff. So there's a whole range of options so far as that goes.
Yeah, I think we even in the Supernatural Handbook have some rules for handling things like sanity and Call of Cthulhu.
They do.
And fun stuff like that.
Yeah. Let's see. Kind Regards says, in one game that I was going to run, my players and I did some world building as a group. It strikes me as a nice way to break the ice, to get comfortable in that space. And boy, anything that you create and then, or you kind of co-create with folks and then have to step into then role play in that space. Boy, what a better, you're well suited to that whole endeavor. Let's see. Robert says, I'm looking forward to running some Halloween nonsense this October. I'm looking forward to it too, Robert. I hope you stream, but you have to keep us surprised because, Halloween is coming, and it's, of course, the best holiday of the year.
Right.
John Pologic says, I think M&M works well for PL5 and over in campaign genres that emphasize streamlined combat mechanics, low lethality for player characters, and plenty of over-the-top heroic moments. Or
pretty accurate.
Would be more like Space Marines versus Xenomorphs than Helpless Teenagers versus Slashers.
Yeah. It's not impossible to do the Helpless Teenagers versus Slashers, but there's better engines out there to simulate that sort of thing.
I gotcha. I'm checking back in the chat to see if we're missing anything. And, so for someone like me, who's a dum-dum, when I'm looking at what the work is, so what should I bring to the process outside of what M&M already offers? What should I be prepared to have?
If you are looking to do something that does sort of have magical abilities or superpowers in a way, I think Power Profiles is a great place to start looking for templates of what to do. Like when I do M&M Star Wars, I build out a number of force powers as pre-built powers that the heroes can add to their characters a la carte style. So I know what force push looks like. I know what a force choke looks like. I know what force lightning looks like. I know what all that looks like and how many points it is per rank. And setting up equipment lists and just getting really into the minutia of things to give your players a base idea of what the world is like, and then giving them the room to grow from there with their character creation.
Yeah, I mean, Mutants and Masterminds is basically a power designing system. Mm-hmm. So, just like power profiles and gadget guides are big catalogs of pre-made powers, you can build a catalog of power options for your own setting, whatever that may be. And it really just depends on how much you want to put into building out all of those options versus letting the players build what it is they want their characters to have, and then kind of working backwards from that, so far as that goes.
Yeah, building templates, like in the Cosmic Handbook for alien templates, is also a cool thing that you can give as options to the players.
Robert mentions, Ken actually mentions the M&M Western would be crazy. That'd be fun. It would be fun. That's great. Absolutely. Let's see. There's even a massacre survivor archetype in the Supernatural Handbook.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Nice. Let's see. What would you say is the most unique thing M&M has that should be maintained no matter what when you reskin it to another?
Hero points, and a lot of them.
And hero points and their relationship with complications.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah. That's really, really great.
You can do a lot of interesting things with that, and it's a strong character dynamic regardless of the genre you're playing in. It's just the complications themselves will differ depending on the genre and the characters. But it will be still a very effective way of getting the characters motivations and their sort of key elements into play and reward the players for it.
Gotcha. Squire asks, how would you expand skills since they may have a bigger role in what characters can do?
That's an excellent idea.
Yeah, I think expanding is a great idea. Just taking sort of like the skills as they are right now are very much big baskets that cover a bunch of things. But if you're in a high tech society, maybe your technology skills aren't just technology. It's like mechanics or security or computers or however into the minutia you want to be.
Yeah, you really want to look at the skills that are important to the genre and how they're portrayed as far as that goes. So in some settings, the vehicle's skill is too broad, and you want specific skills for dealing, like in a Fast and the Furious sort of setting, you might want a character who's particularly good at cars. And that's more important. But on the other hand, in a setting like Star Wars, it seems like if you're good at piloting anything, you're good at piloting everything. And
no matter how much Han Solo says, this ain't like Dustin Crops boy.
Right? So it seems like the vehicle skill actually works well there.
So RC says, let's see. Wait, even more important, don't try to mod the game to have hit points.
That's a personal choice.
Yeah, there are rules for it. It's not my cup of tea, but there are rules for it.
Let's see. I'm looking at so many great mentions and comments, and oh yes, right. Kind regards brings up something very important, I think, and something you should probably have in abundance, and that is the statement is, what should you bring? A healthy and open attitude, but the ability to say no. Just in case people get a little
an important GM skill.
Yeah, absolutely.
And never be that GM who's like, I'm thinking of a number, and if you don't guess it, I'm going to punish you.
Yeah, no.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's my least favorite GM.
Yeah, no, I think it's everybody's. Bearwise says, of course, you might need to rename hero points to fit the scenario.
Yes, sometimes you might.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
My Suicide Squad games are called parole points.
Hey, cool. That's great. I mean, that's awesome. That's fun.
Yeah. Or if you're doing Star Wars, they can be force points. Fallout, they could be special points or action points, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oranon says the Time Traveler's book is a good way to deviate your rules from the main setting ones. Yeah,
it is, because Time Traveler's Codex looks at different eras and settings, and so that provides some subgenres as far as that goes. If you're doing something that's vaguely historical,
that's the Time Traveler's Codex.
Yep.
Awesome. And Oranon also mentions that there's some Western settings in there in the Time Traveler's Codex to check
Indeed.
out. Let's see. Square Peg Makes Games says, got a question. What is the license for using M&M as a standalone product?
It's called Super Powered by M&M, and you can find more information about it on the Green Ronin website.
Yeah,
Yes,
we'll drop a link. And that was we'll save a little time at the end if we can. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes the end sneaks up on us. We're not even ready for it, and it's there. Let's see. Fool of a Monster. I want to see what your question was. Oh, resistance rolls are much better. Okay, I see. You guys are having a debate. Y'all are.
Hit points, yeah.
Yeah, and
no, they're all agreeing.
Yeah.
There's not much of a debate, really.
Not really. Yeah, they're just they're sharing thoughts and synergizing, if you will. RC, thank you for dropping that link. You're a regular link wizard. We have SquarePeg asks about, do we have a Discord? We have kind of several Discords. We've got we've got a Pooks community, which is based on Mutants Masterminds, and it's kind of it's a proprietary kind of world space, but it uses our books and we are dear friends. And then we also have the Discord, it's the age appropriate Discord. Anyway, we'll drop a link to that here. If someone's got it in the chat, feel free to drop that there as well. We have official representatives on both of those, so thank you. Yeah, the Freedom City. Drop into the Freedom City and get to know some folks. But you'll be as close as you possibly could be to getting answers related to anything Mutants and Masterminds related. So cool. Okay, so is there any, we did talk about like sort of I'll be honest, when John shared the difference between the alien chasing after, the alien versus the slasher at camp thing, I didn't immediately understand why the slasher at camp thing wouldn't work if you just...
It would work. Yeah. I think that the key point is that the lower you get in power level for Mutants and Masterminds, the less differentiated the characters can be in any meaningful way, because they have fewer points to play around with. And, 1 point difference in an ability here or a skill there doesn't really matter all that much. The interesting thing for me, in a really super low powered game, you're talking like power level, like 1 or 2 characters, is going back to the notion of talking about hero points and complications, because that is actually where those things become even more important and shine much more, because those characters are going to be totally reliant on getting hero points in order to pretty much do anything. And including survive, because they're not very effective at anything. If their opponent is like a supernatural slasher, they're basically doomed, unless they have hero points to spend.
Right.
So their complications are going to be hugely important, and it's going to be all about who can bring as many of their complications into play as possible to earn their characters as many hero points as they can in order to possibly survive.
I love that dynamic. And so how would you go about, so a lot of times, folks may be experiencing Mutants and Masterminds for the first time, whether it's, with a different sort of story layered on top of it, but how would you get players to feel comfortable doing that? Because it kind of goes against the human condition. Be vulnerable, and interact in a vulnerable way, be rewarded with a hero point. That's at first maybe a little interesting, but how would you prepare your players to embrace that?
I think there's a discussion up front before the game starts about genre expectations and game expectations, and the knowledge that you will be rewarded for taking a suboptimal play by using a hero point that you can then use to survive something horrible or to come up with a clever solution to your problems.
Yeah, I like that. And so Robert Williams says something it's interesting, because I've not heard this myself, but we're sitting here in a tower made of Mutants and Masterminds books. That's where our HQ is. He talks about that M&M kind of falls apart below PL5.
Well, again, it depends on what you mean. M&M almost changes genres below power level 5. Power level 5 characters are, pretty much like, human action adventure characters. Power level 5, 6 is around that area. Below power level 5, you're talking about characters who are largely going to be fairly, unless they've got points spent in some minor superpowers, are largely going to be people. They're not going to be adventurer level heroes. And so, like we were talking about with the horror genre, if you are looking for an action adventure style game, then you're not going to get it at that low power level with those characters, because they just don't have those capabilities. They're just going to be fairly normal people for the most part.
Right.
But if you're playing a genre where the protagonists are fairly normal people, it can work. It's just they're not going to be super heroic by any stretch of the imagination. There's if your perception is there is such a thing as a power level 1 superhero, then yes, the system falls apart, because there is no such thing.
That's right. Well, that makes perfect sense then. Yeah, and I can definitely see how if you're trying to have a super thing going on and you're under PL5, I mean that makes perfect sense. This is interesting. Jefferson asks, how can I represent characters that transform into a more powerful version of themselves, like Dragon Ball Z or Super Saiyan?
Well, as Simon Wentworth mentioned, there is the holding back advantage from Hero High, which creates a situation where there is a version of your character that's 4 power levels higher than your current one. That has to be triggered through some story element and working with your GM. Yep. The other thing that you can do is work with your GM and basically start your character off maybe at a lower power level than the other characters in the story, and then build versions of them upwards and agree with your GM on where your transition points are.
Right.
Now, would you... Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was going to say, you can take the approach that basically Magna Force does in Superpowered Handbook, or Super Team Handbook, excuse me, where basically there are just 2 different versions of the character. There's the low power level version when they're, for Magna Force when they're out of their mecha. And then there's the high power level version they have when they're using their mecha. And you can do that, with characters who just transform as well, of saying, well, here's your baseline power level, but, when, things, really start happening and there's that trigger in the adventure, you guys go up to this power level and these are what your stats are like,
Would you do that?
Definitely do that.
Would you visualize that through another character sheet?
Yeah,
I would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's the easiest thing to do, is just say, okay, swap out to your power level 14 character sheets now,
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Kind regards says, consider also that rats and cats are PL3.
That just continues the long time honored tradition of cats being able to kill commoners in RPGs.
That's right. Yeah, that's all right. That's right.
Cats do a D4 damage in D&D, and commoners have 1 hit point in D&D.
You have no idea how hard it was for us to get cats as low as PL3.
Right.
You also have to take some special considerations when it comes to equipment and power level limits at those lower power levels, because rules is written, nobody who's power level 1 or 2 is allowed to pick up an assault rifle and use it.
Right, because it would change their power level.
Yeah.
Squarepeg asks, oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so
and
maybe...
Go ahead, Alex.
And then I'll... no, I'm kidding.
I was going to say, you may want to change the equipment guidelines when it comes to a group of normal humans, as player characters, and just say whatever equipment they pick up is what they pick up, as far as that goes.
Yeah, maybe just limit their skills to use it, and then don't take the damage of the effect into concern.
Yeah.
So, like, if they have firearms too, they get a +2 to hit, but they still do the damage of the firearm.
Right. Indeed.
Is it Squarepeg asks a question about comparing sort of Mutants Masterminds, to Champions, and in terms of complexity and all of that. Is that a measurable thing? Is that a thing we can say? Oh,
I mean, it's not objectively measurable.
Yeah.
I have had a lot of anecdotal responses from people who have experienced both games and have told me they find Mutants and Masterminds less complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So take that for whatever it's worth.
So yeah, that's anecdotal, and take it to the bank. That's what I say. And
lots of people say that M&M is like Champions for people who hate math or don't own a million D6s. So
right.
Let's see. So there you go, SquarePeg. Hopefully that answers your question. Pook says one of the ways to help differentiate those lower PL characters is to give them more power points than the minimum for their PL. That way they can build out wide instead of high and show a high level of competency while still being a lower PL.
Yep, and that is definitely an option you can work with.
Nice. Let's see. Okay, cats trip damage. Yeah, exactly. Full of a monster says cats murder all.
They got to get your sweet face meat down to where they can get it.
Right, that's right. David says, if a house can't kill a PC, are you even building your engine right? Yeah, exactly. Claudia. Yeah. Let's see here real quick. I'm just checking everybody's responses. Wow, people are just they're going wild today in the chat. Okay, so Gab says, I hope that there will be an astonishing adventures for PL5 characters.
I have made one for PL6 characters. I don't know if I've ever done one for PL5, but I will pick up my pen and I'll notate it.
Oh, everybody grab your bingo sheet. Alex has picked up a pen.
The pen and the notebook are out.
They are out. Good luck to all of our players. Let's see. I think there's a difference too between picking up a piece of gear and actually intending to keep it on your sheet.
Yes, that's true. And it does really, again, it really depends on the kind of game you're running as far as that goes, and what sort of equipment characters can routinely expect to have and encounter. If they're, special forces commandos or Wild West gunslingers, that's one thing. If they're just, suburban kids, who investigate mysteries, them finding, much less holding on to an assault rifle might be a thing, to consider.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Alex, what was the PL6 character adventure?
It hasn't come out yet.
Oh, haha.
Well, it's a secret.
It's a secret one. Robert Williams says PL5s versus Crimson Mask would be so terrifying. Oh yeah. Robert Williams also brings up a spy adventure. Super fun.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just disconnecting it's keeping the foundation of what M&M does, but divorcing it from the superhero genre. That's
sure.
It's recalibrating genre expectations for yourself. And it does tend, these characters are still going to be more powerful than other characters in other genre style games, but that's part of the fantasy, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you could, if you wanted to, run a Mutants and Masterminds adventure that's about what it is like to be a normal person in the world where there are superheroes and supervillains. And have a group of characters, who are, just manage to find them, who are basically the, sort of lowest lanes of the setting, and are the ones who manage to find themselves in trouble a lot. That can be an interesting and in some ways kind of scary scenario when your characters are power level 3 and they're dealing with characters who are power level 10 to 12 and could snap them in two easily enough.
Yeah, that's
I ran an adventure where all of the player characters NPCs that they loved all got abducted, and the team had to work together to break themselves out.
Oh, I like that. So were they the abducted?
Yeah, they were their abducted NPCs.
Ooh, I like that. David says Astro City did such great work with that bystander idea.
Yeah, does a lot with that sort of normal person's perspective.
Right. Always look out for the crumbling building or the force waves. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Fairwise. Yeah, that's great. Now, I don't know who Amy Feng is.
She's a reporter character from Freedom City, so a potential Lois Lane stand.
There we go. Adventure module about the life of Amy Feng. That's great. With respect to making characters who power up and innocent civilians, a really easy trick is to give a character a power loss complication where they are a normal person.
Sure. Oh. It's a pretty common one in the comics.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've also often said that Mutants and Masterminds would be a perfect Shadowrun system.
Because
that setting really needs a game to go with it.
Agreed. Ken Pham says Cyberpunk M&M. That is all. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, absolutely.
Cyberware is all just superpowers, so that's pretty
Sure.
easy to do.
Yeah. So a question for you two, thinking about the genres that are out there, we'll say the IPs that are out there. What do you think? Like we talked a little bit about the slasher sort of Jason, stuff, the aliens, and what are some other genres that would be a good fit for Mutants and Masterminds?
A game where everybody plays kaiju would be a lot of fun. Like if you wanted to do a Kong Skull Island style game where everybody's a Kong, that would be a ton of fun.
Yep, indeed. You could do a lot with science fiction settings in Mutants and Masterminds. The system is really great for designing aliens with different abilities, things like that, or super technology that does particular things. So far as that goes.
Fool of a Monster says, "Oops, all dragons."
Right.
That would be a great game to play. You could play that game in M&M.
You absolutely could.
I would like that. I'm curious about the kaiju. I love that idea. How would you architect that?
Personally, I would actually change the scale of the setting. So rather than having everybody buy growth and do all of that other nonsense, I would actually just define the average height in the setting as 30 stories tall, and decide that everything else is just tiny by comparison, and start from there.
I like that. Yeah, that's great.
If you want to be a 15-story tall kaiju, you just take shrinking 4.
Right, then you're small. Yeah, by kaiju standards.
By kaiju standards, exactly. What kaiju would you include in the mix? Just would you kind of create your own, or would you look for kind of pulling up in some of the tropes?
I mean, I would play Godzilla. Like if you could play Godzilla,
Sure,
that's the right option.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with.
I love that. I love that a lot. I do also like Jonesy mentions the 80s cartoon adventure hour. I mean, sure, absolutely.
Sure.
A lot of fun stuff you could do with that. And now, would M&M, would it blend in or would lend itself well to something like Star Trek?
Yeah, pretty good. I think that it's one of those, and Star Trek is another one of those genres where it's the differentiation of the characters is very heavily based on their complications and to a certain degree their skill choices, but not that much, just because Starfleet characters are so omnicompetent at things.
Right.
Your branch that you're involved in probably has some influence on it, and the GM can even emphasize that by varying the power level caps slightly for certain skills to say, if you're in the command branch, then yes, you can definitely have the leadership advantage and you can have a higher presence, than, somebody who's in sciences, who's going to be able to have a higher cap on intelligence and, knowledge and technology skills and that kind of thing.
Right, right.
Just to vary it up a little so that, everybody doesn't look exactly the same.
Yeah, fun limitations like that on the players or the characters is a cool idea to ensure everybody feels like they've got something to do.
They've got a little bit of their own niche as far as that goes.
Right. Robert Williams says, one time we played a He-Man spinoff as a one-shot because the player couldn't make a game.
That's fun.
That's so fun. Yeah, I love that. Gab says, I'd love murder mysteries. Could you do that?
You can. I mean, that's where you're getting into a lot of the challenge sequence mechanics for a lot of things. So far as that goes, M&M is not specifically designed as a murder mystery procedural, that models that structure of fiction.
Right.
But the investigation rules and the challenge sequences and things like that would adapt pretty well to a mystery type story.
Yeah, that's a lot more work on the back end as a GM to get the plot going rather than anything game engine related.
Yeah, mysteries are hard because you have to carefully balance out the reveals so that the players don't just jump to the end. Because we've all got the friend who, like, when you watch a murder mystery movie, are like, they did it.
That's right.
in like the first 10 minutes.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes they're right.
Yeah, and oftentimes they're right.
Right. Yeah.
But they don't have to wait to find out if they're playing the game rather than just watching it. They can just go and accuse that person right to their face.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And then you have yourself a 15-minute game. Okay. Yeah. All right, everybody. Enjoy a snack for the road. Get out. Ken Pham says Warhammer, Star Trek, Papa John's or Walmart employee, and Dresden Files. Papa John's and Walmart employee. Aye.
Does that person have 2 jobs, or is that 2 people?
Is that the description of a party? Like a group of characters?
Right. Is it like a lineup? You got to guess.
I want to hang out with them.
I do too. I want to, but it does sound like a horror show, honestly.
It also sounds like you had a bad session 0. Like the GM didn't explain what the game was going to be.
Right. That was not clear.
Yeah, and of course there are existing games like Star Trek out there in the world. We're certainly not suggesting, there are Star Trek like genres, of course, but we're a fan of the Star Trek role playing game too. We like it, and we certainly, with all due respect, let's see. General Space Opera is a better match. Firefly, Ice Pirates. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a little more swashbuckly. So it suits M&M a bit better.
Yeah. RC brings up, my Star Trek comment stemmed from me realizing this weekend one of the Cosmic Handbook ships is Enterprise-esque. Sure, absolutely. Back to Kaiju, Vigilance Press has a Kaiju Cultists on Drive-Thru-RPG. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yes, they do.
Yes, very nice. Very nice.
If you are interested in the Kaiju-style genre, by all means, check that out. It's a great resource.
Let's see. Would it be possible to make an adventure similar to Disco Elysium with M&M?
I don't know the reference.
Disco Elysium? I don't either.
I haven't played it. I've heard good things. It's a detective game.
Okay.
I think it's post-apocalyptic. I might be wrong about that, but
okay.
My answer is yes. It's probably possible to make a game like
where
that.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a detective game. I do know that.
Robert Williams mentions pirate game would be hella fun. I loved running Captain Kraken for my play group, and yeah, that was. I remember that was one of the first games I ever played in.
If you want singing robot pirates, M&M is a game for you.
That's right. That's exactly right. Bear Wise says now I want to play Firefly. I cannot stop thinking about it since I read it. That would be a lot of fun. He rescued the players from the sea and press ganged them. Yeah.
If you're ever at Origins, I know AGM who runs, I believe, Firefly with M&M.
Nice.
I know they run Firefly games. I don't know if it's with M&M or not, but.
Oranon says Disco Elysium is a detective game, but it would have a lot of GM narration from the main character's psyche. It'd be a tough balance to not turn it into a monologue. That'd be great. Just invite everyone over to your house. All right, let's play. And it's just you talking for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
In that case, if you wanted to simulate something like that, I would actually tell the player, this is the information you're going to learn in this monologue. You deliver the monologue. Improvise it, whatever you want to do.
I like that. Yeah. I like that. And then I think it really does sort of snap people out of that, making a decision like, how should I get involved? Should I do it? And they just get involved because you just elicit that from them. I like it.
Or assign somebody to be another player's like monologue.
Inner voice.
Everybody.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Everybody's each other's monologue.
Alex, I'm noticing like I really like your approach to stuff. It is the extemporaneous stuff. It feels to me like you really kind of incorporate some clever ideas from sort of improv, like stage improv stuff. Like that's super fun. Really smart.
I'm just a lazy GM. Like any work that I can offload to the players, do it.
That's great. That's great. I love it. John says superhero romance has been tackled in a couple third-party supplements, but I'd like to see superhero romantic comedy tackled as a genre using the system.
Now, that's another one of those scenarios that relies very heavily on the combination of role-playing and complications. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're going to systemize it in some particular way.
Right.
I really like that movie, Super X, My Super Ex-Girlfriend with Uma Thurman.
Oh yeah, that is a pretty awesome movie.
Oh, Ramapat mentions when Marvel first started publishing Godzilla, his chief opposition was, if I remember correctly,
Giant
S.H.I.E.L.D.
mecha. Yep. Yeah, Secret Agents versus Kaiju with giant mecha.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
The Secret Agents, not the Kaiju.
Yeah. The Kaiju with an even bigger mecha.
Right.
Young Heroes in Love. Sure, David. Absolutely.
Every game I run turns into a soap opera, so you don't.
I was just going to say,
you don't need the mechanics for it.
properly run comic book superheroes basically turn into a soap opera anyway.
That's right.
So
That's right. Bear Wise says, "Ooh, everyone has their primary character and the inner mind of another player character."
Yep.
Yeah, why not? I mean, how funny. Is there a kind of affliction or something that could happen to a person where two people are depending on, on each other's, actions, emotions or whatever to play? I mean, that seems like an interesting.
I think that's called codependency, Troy.
Oh, yes. I think I've just described all my relationships. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Ward Maximus says, if you want superpowered romantic tragedy, catch the USP streams or podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of tragedy.
There's a lot of that.
A lot of tragedy for sure.
The more preparation I do, the less tragic it is, because my default improv is tragedy. The more ready I am, the less sad everybody gets.
That's right. Just when you start saying masks check, is it comedy? Is it tragedy? It's both? Okay. Let's see. Now I'm pretty much picturing all the Godzilla monsters with Zords. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Ready Player One or Tron, both. Both may work well using the M&M engine. Sorry, John, I kind of got it shorted out there. This is good stuff. Wow. USP is the Untold Stories project, and where do we send them if they want to see that? It's Untold.
If you're on YouTube, just go to the Untold Stories Project YouTube page.
There you go.
But if you want to catch us live, we're at twitch.tv/Untold Stories Project.
Nice. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Let's see. There are characters. Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
there
like John points out, the sort of virtual reality scenarios from Tron to the Matrix are. The Matrix is just a superhero scenario.
Yes,
as far as that goes, and so virtual reality is great for weird characters with powers that just happen to represent accessing different kinds of technology or doing different actions in a virtual world, as far as that goes.
Oh, I like that. Thank you.
What I love about the Matrix is that the Matrix is like 4 power level 5 characters and a power level 15 character.
Right. who at least initially doesn't know that he's power level 15.
Yeah, absolutely. Or Anon is very excited about Tron.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said
as they should be.
Right.
Isekai M&M campaign?
That's a style of anime story, but that's definitely possible.
Yep.
Okay.
Anime is also another genre that you can do in M&M. A lot of it is dependent very heavily on the genre conventions, the complications the characters have, and the limits the GM places on what kind of how weird and wacky your character can be.
Couple endorsements for Reboot instead of Tron. I'm not familiar with Reboot.
Reboot is a fun property. Speaking of weird virtual realities.
Full of Monsters says Alice in Wonderland is an isekai.
Yeah, it's a regular person goes to a fantastical world.
Right.
I see.
But the fantastic world isn't always a good place to be. I was thinking Alice in Borderlands.
More like
that would be a rough one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I dig it. Okay, so that would mean like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's technically an isekai property.
Yeah, is that how you say it? Isekai?
I think it's isekai.
I don't know, but you know what we're saying, right, chat?
My brother would know.
You smell what we're stepping in. Okay.
The big thing to consider in those kinds of scenarios is the role of the ordinary person and what, if any, sort of special properties that gives them, or are they just a poor hapless power level 2 person and surrounded by power level 8 characters.
I am not saying that out loud. What does this say? I can't wait to run a Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Is that? Did I just curse myself? What is that? Is that even?
You weren't supposed to read from the book, Troy.
Right? My
eyes. Never read the Latin incantations out loud.
Right. So Robert Williams says, so gore, G-O-R, isn't. Nah.
Let's not get into gore, shall we?
Okay, I knew I shouldn't even. Robert Williams, you go wash your mouth out with soap or whatever it is, your fingers. You got it right. Okay, good. It's a magical girl anime. Okay, fun.
There you go.
Yep. Magical girl is a genre that M&M does very well.
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
As we have seen in multiple cases, including one of Untold Story Project's current games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Gemstars.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's basically a magical girl anime.
Robert's laughing. A unique magical girl anime. Sure, Simon. Yeah. Okay, so holy crap, we've only got 10 minutes left. So anything that we want to touch on, we've got you're fine, Robert. Anything that we want to make sure that we incorporate into, like, is there advice that we want to be sure folks have? Anything that's really important that we leave them with, sort of motivation, inspiration, and to help them with the perspiration?
Well, I think just when you get into the idea of adapting M&M into a different kind of genre, a different kind of setting, it's just important to remember why you're doing that. What about Mutants Masterminds are you trying to bring to that genre, and why is that an improvement to anything else that might be set in that genre already? So keeping in mind that it's a very big group storytelling, the players have a lot of narrative power through the use of hero points and complications. The action is going to be very cinematic. The heroes are going to be triumphant most of the time. And just keeping all of that in mind while not being too beholden to the superhero genre.
Yeah, I think keeping your focus in mind is really important. M&M as an engine is meant to encompass basically everything. And if you're focusing on a particular genre, be very willing to say no to things and to realize that you don't have to include every option in the book if that doesn't fit the particular kind of game that you're trying to tell. And a little key piece of advice is take a look at things like the talent powers in power profiles, and remember that while you don't have to include everything, just because your game doesn't have what would traditionally be defined as superpowers doesn't mean it doesn't have any powers.
Right.
As far as that goes, anyone who has watched an action adventure movie knows that these characters do have superpowers.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Steve asks, I think, what is a pretty next level or advanced sort of question. And if we don't have the answer right now, that's fine. But I just wanted to kind of toss it out there. The D20 Hero SRD has so much potential as the foundation for a truly generic, universal D20 TTRPG. Reincorporating damage dice and hit points is actually pretty straightforward. Curious if there are any ideas for something like that in the future. Would love to see that happen. Yeah, I mean, how do you even answer that?
I mean, we can honestly say there are no plans at the moment.
Yeah,
it's something that we have talked about in the past, and I imagine we'll probably talk about again in the future. It's really the question about whether or not there is an audience for something that is that generic, versus something that focuses on a popular genre like superheroes with Mutants and Masterminds.
Yeah. Hey, Quick and Dirty Roleplaying says, greetings, folks. Saw the title of the stream and immediately thought I've been using M&M like this since its inception.
Awesome. Good. See, you're ahead of your time.
That's awesome. Yeah. Glad we have finally met to make that connection. That's awesome.
Yeah. Ornan, the name of that show is Gemstars.
Yeah, Ornan, it sounds like this is right up your alley. Gab has a question for you, Alex. How is your time travel astonishing adventures going?
They're coming along very well.
Nice.
Yeah, they I'm waiting for them to come back from development, and then they'll be all good to go.
Sweet. Ken Pham says, happy MuMaMo, everyone. I think this is the best one yet. Wow.
I'd love to hear that.
I'm glad to hear it.
Absolutely. Okay. 5 minutes left. Let's talk about everything related to the Superpowered by M&M that we can fit into 3 of those minutes.
Well, Superpowered by M&M is our third-party publishing license for Mutants and Masterminds. All of the details about it are available on Green Ronin's website. But the quick and dirty of it is you are allowed to create Mutants and Masterminds products as long as you mention that it requires the use of the Mutants and Masterminds Deluxe Heroes Handbook on the cover of whatever you're doing, and you are not allowed to access our content property, so our intellectual property. So you can make M&M stuff, but it can't be set in Earth Prime. You can't use our characters. And there's a few product identity terms that are not allowed to be used. You could find those, most of them, in the back of your Deluxe Heroes Handbook. In the OGL license, there should be a line that details what exactly product identity is.
Gotcha. RCS, my only Superpowered by M&M question is, are hero points and power points product identity or open content?
I believe hero points and power points are content identity or product identity.
Indeed.
Gotcha.
Pretty sure that's still the case.
All right. So I think we better wrap on that. That's what an information-packed episode, which I really enjoyed, but was well over my head, and I'm looking forward to learning more along with everybody in chat. Question for you, Steve. What's going on in Steve Kensonland?
Let's see. I just handed over my M&M mix-up for the Patreon. Featuring the Eclipse Syndicate and Isla Portico. So that is entitled The Eclipse of the Serpents, and should be going up on the Patreon soon. Like our previous mix-up, it's basically just a 2-page adventure outline, about how do you combine those characters and that setting element into a possible adventure.
Yeah, and we're going to circle back, and you'll get those in a PDF form, but we prefer you have the guts and the goodness of it.
Well, we have a PDF. So.
Is it already designed?
It is done. It's all done.
I did.
It's ready.
Wow. Well, then never mind me. I'm a liar. Or I'm just, my time is not lined up with real time. So, so Alex, how about you? What's going on in your world?
Oh, it's a busy week. Tomorrow we have our next rendition of The Joy of Game Mastering.
Ooh, fun.
And I'm not sure what the topic is going to be yet, but we'll find out tomorrow. It'll be something nitty gritty and exciting. I've got a couple of conventions coming up that I've got to do some designing for. So we'll probably dive into some scene design, particularly challenge sequence. If you want to know how to set up a good challenge sequence and see it happen in real time, rather than sort of the highbrow stuff, we'll come down into the nitty gritty details. Wednesday, we have our Patreon developer Q&A at 8 p.m.
That's right.
Friday, we have an AMA over on Reddit, where Steve and I will be answering questions.
Yeah. Really excited about that. That'll be fun.
And our next actual play is going to be, I think
this weekend, isn't it?
I think it's going to be on September 2nd.
Okay, cool.
Okay, awesome.
And my intention is to run a Titan City adventure detailing the kids of Titan City. There is a school there called the Silverthorn Academy, where a bunch of magic-using and monstrous children go to learn how to use their powers and coexist with society. So
I love that. That is awesome.
Nice.
Hey, real quick, Quick and Dirty Role-Playing says, before the stream ends, just wanted to say that M&M is the best iteration of D20, hands down.
Oh, thank you very much. That's
nice to hear. Yeah, so much good stuff coming up, friends. And, you want to be connected over at the Patreon. So head on over there. That's patreon.com/mutants and masterminds. And yeah, buckle up because there's a lot of great changes and good stuff coming. But yeah, this is a great week to be into Mutants and Masterminds. There's tons of stuff happening. Yeah. So, hey, gentlemen, thank you so much for spending the hour and hanging out. I want to say to the chat, as per usual, both wonderful and terrible mixed together, and really appreciate everybody hanging out. Hey, do me a favor, make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure you like. Make sure you tickle that bell. Give us all the hearts. Give us the stars. Give us all of the stuff, and share it with a friend. That way, we can tell that algorithm to pay attention. And
yes,
yeah, absolutely. With that, I say good day, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
For some reason, I looked at Steve. I thought he was flipping the camera off. He was not. And with that, we
Troy.
say,
I would never.
You would never.